Hello everyone and welcome back to round 3 of our F1 Manager 25 Mercedes Career Mode. Yes, we're back this weekend ready for the Japanese Grand Prix. Of course, if you missed out on the last video that went live from Shanghai, I would highly recommend going back and checking it out. But yeah, hopefully this weekend is going to be kind of our big step forward inside this series because we have finally got our first upgrades coming onto the car. Red Bull lead in the Constructors' Championship ahead of Ferrari and McLaren. Still Max Verstappen with a full 50 points in the drivers' table after the opening couple of races. But Hamilton, he's finished second on both occasions as well, so looking pretty competitive early on, just ahead of Lando Norris, Charles Leclerc and Oscar Piastri. George Russell, he's down in 10th overall with 3 points to his name. Andrea Kimi Antonelli still yet to score so far this season, but hopefully this weekend things can change. That leaves us in P5 in the Constructors, tied with VCarb, but just with a best result so far in the Championship. So yeah, we're hoping we can kind of comfortably be better than them. Ideally, we want to beat Aston Martin, though, by the end of the season. No change, of course, in Formula 2 and Formula 3, of course, because they didn't race out in Shanghai, and obviously they won't be racing here in Japan either. But yeah, we've had a new front wing design has been completed. We've also got some manufacturing of these side pods already on the car, so I'm hoping we should be able to obviously try and manufacture some of these new parts as well. You can see we've still got the side pods. They're going to take a little bit longer to do. And how long will a front wing take? So it reckons 3 days, but if we speed it up, we might be able to get one on the car ready for next weekend as well, obviously out at Suzuka. In terms of those side pods, I've actually put the upgrade on George Russell's car, rather understandably. It hasn't changed much in terms of like the overall performance between both cars, but you can definitely see that, yeah, there is obviously a slight advantage, obviously still for George, and that advantage, yeah, might just be getting a little bit bigger as well over the next few races. But yeah, like I said, obviously we want to try and get those new kind of parts manufactured on the car as quickly as we can. Get yourself subscribed if you're new. We're trying to hit 4K subs here on the channel. I'm still really enjoying F1 Manager. I'm hoping to try and get a few more videos out inside this series, but I guess at least as well today we can kind of chill, talk about the real life Chinese Grand Prix as well as we head into the race. But yeah, first of all, of course, let's head to qualifying.
Konnichiwa from the Suzuka circuit in Japan. This unique track is a favourite home for motorsports, and it welcomes us back this weekend. Get ready for exhilaration and speed with the Japanese Grand Prix. In the last round, Max Verstappen flew to victory, the Dutchman proving that he can be absolutely unstoppable when he's in such fine form. Stay with us then, as the weekend gets underway.
Well, horrible conditions are meant to be pelting the Suzuka circuit throughout the entirety of the weekend, so it means for the second time in 3 Grand Prix, we have got some horrible conditions ready for qualifying. That does, though, provide us potentially some opportunities to try and obviously game the system a little bit. So it looks like, yeah, rain is only really meant to start falling right towards, meant to get less and less, right towards the end of this session. I just want to double check how comfortable both drivers are with their car setups right now. Russell, as you can see, they're definitely not quite in the window he would be confident with. So just going to try and make a few little tweaks. I'd rather they both have just a little bit too much traction than not enough in both of those cars as well. Kimi Antonelli again, got not quite enough straight line speed in that second car either there, so we'll just make a couple of little tweaks. Again, just try and make sure both drivers are happy. Don't really want to be kind of changing around the setups all too much as we head into qualifying, because of course, obviously, I want both drivers, you know, to kind of feel accustomed and ready, because so far, the rest of the weekend has also been kind of these similar horrible conditions as well then, as everybody else heading out for their first runs. Yeah, this is just going to be a session of one run and we're done right at the very end. Here we are then, ready for both drivers' one-shot qualifying run then, as it's effectively, yeah, one shot for everybody in this session. Just under a minute left on the clock. The only car that's been a bit awkward, actually, is Carlos Sainz in his Williams, who I think is about to immediately rocket up to P number 1, which he will by 4 seconds there ahead of anybody else. So, yeah, definitely now is the right time to be out there, and I've tried to make sure that we are the last cars on a run here as we head out in Q1, because, of course, yeah, the circuit is still drying up a little bit more. Might have put the drivers slightly too close together, though, is my only concern down in towards turn 1. But yeah, I think Sainz, though, despite the fact he went fastest by so much, might actually have screwed himself over here, because, of course, everybody else now is going to be improving on their own runs right towards the end of the session. Like I said, our big goal, first and foremost, is that we just make it through and into Q2 then, as we'll try and obviously... I mean, if we just stay with Antonelli, we can basically see what split times both cars are going with. Tsunoda now top of the board. I'm sure the Japanese crowd will be loving that one. Russell there just puts a 10th.5 on Kimi Antonelli through sector 1. But, yeah, I mean, around the rest of the lap, though, it is, like I said, just about trying to get both cars through. Lando Norris now goes comfortably to the top of the board, and Hamilton will further improve on his time there. Looks like Bortoletto did go quicker than Sainz, but not very much either there. So times are all changing. Both Red Bulls will be safely through and into Q2 as well. Fernando Alonso goes up into 7th place. Of course, he and Lance Stroll will just be looking to try and make it through and into that second session as well. There is Felipe Drugovich. He actually had a bit of a lock-up on his outlap, so I think that has completely screwed him over. Jack Doohan will also not see Q2. Neither will Nico Hulkenberg here, as down in towards the final couple of corners both of our cars go. So far, the lap time's looking all right. As George Russell then out of the final corner up towards the line. Maybe the circuit just drying up a little bit too much. He will go 11th. Antonelli will go 13th. Not fantastic pace in Q1, but given the circumstances, I'm all right with that. We head out now then into Q2. It looks like we've basically got a reverse of what happened in Q1. The rain is just meant to get worse and worse, and it's not ever meant to come back down to the levels it was at. So again, it looks like it's going to be one-shot qualifying here. If we're out in the drop zone, we might try and send both drivers back out right towards the end of the session. Luckily, this time round, I've given them a little bit more breathing room between each other. Kimi Antonelli won't quite be pushing George Russell along and in towards that first corner then. But yeah, these first lap times really could kind of set the benchmark here. As you can see, 1.98 mil of water on the circuit. That's kind of the important figure that we're going to be looking for. But I think we'll ride with George Russell this time round then. Sector 1 splits for about 33.6 in Q1. But the circuit is slightly damper. But hopefully, you know, as confidence builds, you know, as belief in the car, especially in just kind of general track knowledge, will continue to ramp up there. Still actually a little way down in that first sector there. Kimi Antonelli again a further 3.5 tenths away from George Russell. So maybe just tucked up a little bit still too close there. They were talking about this in Shanghai actually over the weekend. That still, even with these ground effect cars, there's some circuits where you want to leave up to a 7-second gap between yourself and the car in front, which is quite astounding, to be honest, that it makes that much of a difference, even now still in the sport, you know, to try and get those perfect conditions ready for a qualifying run there. As George Russell, though, this lap so far seemingly looking pretty good. 39.9 sector 2. Kimi Antonelli will again do a 40.2. So losing another few tenths of a second here relative to his teammate. Just the Casio triangle, though, to try and navigate for George there as he navigates his way through nice and tidy through the right and the left. Got to be so careful as you try and get the throttle down. Now I want the rain to start really pouring here, as Russell will do a 35.4, Antonelli around a 36.0. But Leclerc behind immediately goes a second clear. Hamilton, though, that's a little bit closer to the drop zone than he would like. But yeah, I mean, even Isaac Hadjar's gone quicker than Antonelli. So were both Haskars. So he is going to have to go again. I tried to take a bit of a gamble with George Russell here and not send him back out, but I didn't realise just how quickly the rain was falling away towards the end of Q2. So I might just have put us in a situation where Russell isn't going to be at risk of falling into the drop zone. The weather isn't looking any better than it was earlier on. And, you know, I'm kind of hoping that the likes of Behrman, you know, Albon won't be able to improve there. I would expect Fernando Alonso to, though. So actually, it's that time by Tsunoda that's the really, really awkward one here. And we might end up in a situation where only one of our cars again can make it through into Q3, unless we get a bit of a miracle and nobody else is able to improve here. Let's take a look at what the split times are through Sector 1. Hopefully Antonelli won't get held up by Lewis Hamilton all too badly either, otherwise that might save George Russell here come the end of qualifying. Hamilton luckily dives out of the way, and Kimi Antonelli a 33.9. That is pretty much the same time as what we saw from George Russell earlier on in the session. Ollie Behrman won't improve. Alonso won't improve. So that is reassuring at the moment then, that it looks like a lot of times for other drivers aren't really getting any quicker. Ocon will improve and push George Russell down right onto the cusp. So now it is guaranteed one of our cars should make it through and one of them won't. Teo Pourchaire there down in P16. The only real question then is Isaac Hadjar, who will stay in P14, as Kimi Antonelli then makes his way through the exit of Spoon Corner there. He's just got a few more corners to try and navigate on this lap. A 39.7. He is improving here. So are we about to see Andrea Kimi Antonelli knock George Russell out again? For whatever reason, we just cannot get both cars into Q3 so far this season. It's constantly been a bit of a curse for Mercedes in these opening 3 GP. Will it be Russell? Will it be Antonelli through and into that final session? It is Andrea Kimi Antonelli, 7 tenths away from fastest. Heartbreak for George Russell. We took the gamble, and unfortunately, he only just misses out. Well, here we are then, ready in Q3, and well, once again, changeable conditions here has basically just meant that every single driver is trying to head out right towards the end of the session. I'm trying to leave it as late as I possibly can with Antonelli's car. Everybody, it started out with like 5 mil of rain on the circuit, so nobody just bothered to come out right at the start of the session. But as we make our way through then, less than 20 seconds on the clock, Charles Leclerc fastest on a 1:38.6. Esteban Ocon just inside the 1:40 barrier. Yuki Tsunoda will be a bit disappointed to line up in P3, but I'm hoping Kimi Antonelli can cause a bit of an upset here, being the last car on a run. I'm sure, obviously, Max Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton, they will both be flying along around this circuit, just like we saw in the sprint qualifying in Shanghai last weekend as well. You know, those two still continue to prove themselves as just a little bit better than all the other drivers when you end up in those unknown situations in a session then. But I'm hoping that Yuki Tsunoda there gets out of our way nice and quickly as we make our way through the first Degner. Antonelli there, 35.1. He's about a second away in Sector 1. Luckily, yes, Tsunoda will get out of the way, but not particularly fantastically there. But obviously, yeah, everybody's lap time's a little bit slower at the moment. Liam Lawson rockets up to P1 then at the moment, but he has still got his teammate yet to finish a run. Lando Norris would immediately deny the young Kiwi potentially for his first pole position there. And Verstappen, well, that's not really a surprise, is it? We'll go even quicker than the pair of them on a 1:37.8. But from Andrea Kimi Antonelli then, just a few more corners to try and navigate. That circuit is still improving, admittedly only ever so slightly though. It was a 41.3, so he's about 2.4 seconds down on the times he set so far in Q2. Problem is I can't remember what time he set, so I don't really know how competitive this is going to be. Hopefully we'll be a kind of around Lance Stroll, if not ever so slightly quicker. We should definitely be better than Esteban Ocon though. Out of the final corner, up towards the line, he will go P7. I'll be honest, slower than the Ferraris, the McLarens and the Red Bulls, quicker than Stroll, the Haas and Tsunoda. I'm absolutely happy with that. P7 and P11 then on the grid. Let's head into the race.
It won't be long before we get underway here in Japan with 53 figure-of-8 laps around this historic circuit.
Anything can happen at Suzuka, as Kimi Raikkonen proved in 2005. The Finn battled all the way from 17th to win. Will we see a similar show of will and talent today, I wonder?
Suzuka is a high-speed, high-downforce circuit with unpredictable weather. Drivers need to have total trust in their cars to make the most of this challenging figure-of-8 lap. The excitement is building, there's electricity in the air, but there's no surprise in that. It's race day.
Well, here we are then, getting ready for the Japanese Grand Prix then. Like I said, P7 and P11 on the grid for us. how is the rain meant to look? It is just meant to rain consistently throughout the afternoon. So I think we are going to see a double intermediate strategy coming out from both of the cars. I'm actually going to try and underfuel them as well quite a lot here. To hopefully give us a bit of an advantage off the start. Because, yeah, I mean, we've seen Suzuka before. It's not a particularly easy track to overtake on. Kimi's actually starting in P6. So that's pretty good going then. So someone else is taking some grid penalties as well further behind. I'm just hoping he can score his first points of the year. That's the big goal with Antonelli this weekend. Let's not forget he hasn't got any of the new car parts either. As unfortunately, obviously, we are in Parc Ferme. So I could try and install it onto George Russell's car. I don't think we'll risk it. Both cars are starting right near the point, so I don't want to have to try and fight our way back through. Let's just head out there. Let's do this thing.
Well, it's great to have you with us, folks, as we settle in for the weekend's Grand Prix action. Yuki Tsunoda will be hoping things go his way today.
Starting in the top 10 is good, but they'll need to play the race really well to not lose places.
Here we go. It's time to go racing. The drivers are warmed up. They're ready to go here at the Japanese Grand Prix. It's lights out and away we go.
Well, there we are then. Lights out and away we go here from Suzuka. And hopefully George Russell is going to be able to try and go aggressive off the start down in towards turn 1. No, I'm trying to set that with Antonelli, aren't I? Hopefully Russell can try and make some progress here. I'm going to try and tell him to go on the overtake there. I think Antonelli has held on to his grid position as well. No, Antonelli's actually up into P5. He's got past one of the Ferraris there, so fantastic start by Kimi Antonelli through the first couple of corners. I must have completely missed that one, and hopefully we'll get to have a look back at it there. Is Esteban Ocon already with damage? Not too sure what's happened to the Alpine, but he must have got, sorry, the Haas driver even, but he must have got that with the contact, potentially trying to get around George Russell here. There's already Antonelli just starting to struggle against trying to, you know, keep up with those cars in front. I'll be honest, Ferrari are not really our fight today, as Hamilton down the inside at the hairpin. Just be nice and careful that we don't lose too much time in the process of that. Our goal today is to try and beat out Tsunoda, Stroll and Alonso. That is exactly the goal from this event there. Charles Leclerc now again tucked right up behind him as well early on in the lap. You can see Russell, he's really struggling as well actually. So maybe we need to try and get both drivers just to push a bit more on their tyres early on here. Just have a bit more confidence to really go for it there. As yeah, Russell, he's just really going backwards off of this start. Both Haas cars now are finding a way past him there. As Andrea Kimi Antonelli down in towards the final couple of corners. Still got Charles Leclerc right on his gearbox as well. Yeah, this has been a pretty terrible start from George Russell, who's even under pressure now from Isaac Hadjar as well. What on earth is going on with George? As he tries to put the power down out of that final corner. Hopefully, will stay ahead of the young Frenchman there. But yeah, really terrible start for George Russell here. Just has no confidence on lap 1. Going to try and get him to kind of build up some temperature in those tyres. Maybe try and go for it. But how on earth is that AlphaTauri getting around or outside at that first corner there? Really not what we want to see. There was wheel to wheel in through the S's. Russell just trimming the grass on the inside there, but I think he might have to give up on the spot. Nope, again, he's going to try and cut through the grass, through the S's there, and he's made a big error. And Russell, he's damaged the underfloor, and he is out of the Grand Prix, I think, already. Can he get going again? No, he cannot. Safety car has been deployed, and for George Russell, already his Grand Prix is done and dusted there. Looks like the rain isn't meant to change throughout the rest of the afternoon, but that has been a terrible start to the GP then. And, I mean, on the one hand, I guess it means we get to focus all of our energy now on Andrea Kimi Antonelli, but that might explain why Russell was losing so many places early on here, because, yeah, that has gone terribly for our '1 driver, and the first Mercedes DNF of the season, if I'm not mistaken. Not going to bother pitting or doing anything like that. We'll try and recover some of the fuel that obviously we underfueled the car by at the start of this one. But I'm expecting this race to be chaos. I was hoping it wouldn't be our cars involved, though. Well, safety car is going to be peeling in then at just the end of lap 5. I mean, it was just literally a case of just trying to get George Russell's car of the circuit. Nobody has pit, though, under that safety car. So now Andrea Kimi Antonelli will have it all to do yet again then. I believe that's our first safety car of the year. Rather interestingly, as well, I've told Antonelli to try and obviously attack off the restart. I'm going to try and get him, potentially look for an overtake as well off of that final corner. But let's go racing once again then here from Suzuka then as we put the power down. We've got a good jump on Charles Leclerc just in front. In fact, we're going to try and look to the outside of Lewis Hamilton back into turn 1. That is a very, very brave move from Andrea Kimi Antonelli to the outside of the 7-time world champion through that first corner. Can't make it happen, though. I can't say I'm too surprised by that one. But, you know, fair play to him for trying to go for it. You know, we saw those kind of moves from Kimi at the start of the... Or, sorry, during the Australian Grand Prix as well. He was one of the only drivers confident enough to really try and make overtakes in that GP as well then. But, like I said, you know, our fight today is not really with Charles Leclerc here early on in the afternoon. So if the second Ferrari car gets past us, it is not the end of the world. Like I said, we want to be trying to defend from the likes of Tsunoda and co. There we go, immediately Leclerc will get by as well then. We just cannot afford to get in a position like we saw with George Russell, where maybe some of the other drivers just try and capitalise on our lack of confidence off the starts there. As again, Yuki trying to find a way down the inside in towards 130R. That's brave at any time. Never mind in wet conditions here early on in the GP. I'm umming and ahhing. I don't think a no-stop is going to be possible this afternoon. So I think it is just going to be about trying to hang on ahead of these cars behind us. But yeah, I don't really think there's going to be much opportunity to try and go too aggressive with the tyre strategy either. Might be worth boxing kind of there-ish, just so we got fresh tyres for when the rain gets slightly heavier. But I just don't think we're going to see too much of a change around with it. There is already Alonso trying to make the move on Lance Stroll. So yeah, clearly I think Aston Martin, they're trying to prioritise their number one driver. Just make sure, yeah, that obviously Alonso, I mean, look at that again, trying to have a look for a move. This time round on Yuki Tsunoda. We'll think better of it down in towards 130R. But yeah, just trying to settle in with Kimi. You know, he's got to build up confidence early on in this GP. As Lando Norris, new fast lap of the day, they're trying to hound Max Verstappen through those first couple of corners. But yeah, my hope is that obviously Tsunoda and Alonso really just start to battle a little bit more. And we can try and build up a bit of a gap there, which might just now be starting to happen just a little bit. Yeah, I thought Alonso might have just made it by, but apparently not. So we will keep just kind of fast-forwarding through over these next few laps then. But like I said, obviously, let's not forget, Kimi Antonelli does not have the new upgrades on the car yet. So this is just kind of the bog-standard Mercedes in this game that he is trying to wheel around at the moment. And now he is really opening up that gap to Yuki as well here. So this is working fantastically early on in the race there. Tsunoda is still, you know, he's not under too much pressure from Alonso behind. But he is definitely, yeah, losing ground to ourselves at this stage of the race there. And, well, if we can just keep opening up this gap, I don't think Yuki's trying to do anything crazy with the tyres. I don't think, actually, we're doing really well on the tyres. So that might explain why Antonelli's doing so well early on then, as he's really looked after the rubber here, and is actually now starting to close in on those cars in front again. So Andrea Kimi Antonelli is doing a fantastic job at the moment here, just managing the pace throughout kind of the first third of this Grand Prix. Red Bull now up into 1-2 position then. But, I mean, yeah, that is staggering. Just to see, you know, the young man with so much confidence there. Lando Norris going to be the first one to try and dive into the pit lane then. So he's going to come out just in P10 there. As again, Alonso trying to look down the inside of Tsunoda at that first corner. But with that bigger gap behind us now, I don't really think we need to take too much risk. Obviously, with the pit strategy in anything else at the moment there. So I think we will just try and stretch the car to half distance as Verstappen will re-emerge just ahead of those little gaggle of cars. And now suddenly, Andrea Kimi Antonelli closing in on the man he has replaced at Mercedes. Their past now hopefully will be going up against their future. Just saying their present has already retired from the Grand Prix then. But hopefully we'll see Hamilton into the pit lane. No, he won't. So, yeah, I think hopefully we're going to blow past him back in towards turn 1 here. So we're just going to ignore that pit stop just yet. I'm going to try and take this first set of tyres just a little bit further. But to the inside then, this time around in towards turn 1. Andrea Kimi Antonelli, is he going to pull off the move? Yes, he is. Fantastic to see down at that first corner there. And I think it's actually because we've been getting him to push on those tyres. I think he's kept them in a better working range than a lot of other drivers in this race. And that is a huge, huge moment for this young man's career there, making the move on Lewis Hamilton. I'm really hoping, actually, we can get him up to the lead of the GP, but I'm not going to try and risk the strategy too much in trying to go for that there, as Hamilton now will dive into the pit lane as well then. Just going to lose the spot to Max Verstappen, so yeah, that certainly is not going to happen in this race. So I think what we'll do now then is we'll dive him in slightly before half distance. But I don't think, yeah, the track is actually meant to get wetter towards the end of the race, so we could see a potential need to move over onto a set of the full wets by the end of the afternoon there. Stroll's staying out, so Antonelli will come back out in P8 with kind of clear air around him as well, and it looks like a fairly clean, tidy pit stop, and still a 10-second gap to Yuki Tsunoda behind. So not only might Antonelli actually score his first points of the year here, but he might immediately leapfrog George Russell in the championship standings as well, which would be absolutely fantastic. Let's take a look then. Oh, we got another safety car. That works out beautifully for a couple of our drivers. That works out really, really well for a couple of drivers. Who's been involved in that accident then? It is the Williams of Alexander Albon tucked up behind the Haas car. Oh! That's a huge hit. We've seen that a couple of times before on this game, but that is a massive crash for Alex Albon, who surely both he and the Haas car are going to be out of the Grand Prix. Yes, they are. Ollie Behrman also involved in that one then. Japan, you do often see some quite big crashes around this circuit as well, but yeah, there we go then. So that might really carry Lance Stroll here. I think we'll still be ahead of him anyway, so it shouldn't be too much of a concern. As Albon, yeah, will pick up a 5-second penalty in the process. That's worked out nicely for Liam Lawson as well in this Grand Prix, because it just means he's not under any pressure from Lando Norris again behind him. But we are still on slightly better tyres than everybody else, looking at the wear values. As here we go, safety car is going to be coming in yet again. So we've got an opportunity now to really just try and push off this restart, because we know the pace of this Mercedes seems to come alive in the wet conditions here. So we are going to try and see if we can go on the attack on Lewis Hamilton yet again then, as we make our way in towards those final couple of corners. Max Verstappen still leading the way there, and already Kimi Antonelli trying to make his intentions clear as safety car peels back in. Hopefully we'll keep a bit of a gap over Lance Stroll just behind us at that final turn, and we'll try and go for it back in towards turn 1. Yeah, I don't think Stroll is going to be too much of a pressure here off the restart then. So as long as we can just gap him temporarily in this race, we're just try and pull away a little bit. I'm not too worried still throughout these next few laps about trying to kind of attack those cars in front. As Lawson, Liam Lawson trying to make a move for the lead there against Max Verstappen. That would have been incredible if he could pull that one off. The only thing I am also considering, of course, is that, you know, the likes of Verstappen, Lando Norris, and maybe even Piastri and Hamilton, they might have to pit again before the end of this race if their pace doesn't look particularly impressive. Looks like Stroll there now just able to latch on as well to the back of this group there, and both getting away from Yuki Tsunoda. But let's just try and kind of keep out of trouble over these next few laps there, and hopefully, yeah, say the Aston Martin's pace will start to fall away just a little bit. The rain now starting to fall off. He's going to make time management just a little bit more tricky. And we'll just make sure, yeah, that, again, Antonelli is not burning, you know, not going to be left vulnerable if he's got no battery or anything like that either there. We've got the gap over Lance Stroll. Anything more than that is a bonus as Norris has gone. We've got more yellow flags again. Who has Norris had a collision with in this GP? This is just chaos. It's both McLarens. Wheel to wheel through turn 1 and turn 2. Oscar Piastri just nudges his teammate and absolutely sends him to the Shadow Realm on the exit of turn 2 there. That was like one of those, what was it, the Fusrodar memes, where they just absolutely went flying. But Lando Norris then, is he out of the Grand Prix? No, it looks like he's going to be able to keep going And he has definitely got a mechanical issue on that car as well then. So there is so much chaos around this circuit at the moment. Andrea Kimi Antonelli now up into 6th place in this Grand Prix. And Oscar Piastri's got a penalty as well. So Oscar Piastri then with a 5-second penalty that will see him through to the end of the afternoon. So if we can just stay with him, we might be able to get another position for free in this Grand Prix as well. We've just got to try and manage the tyre temperature. I don't want to be kind of in a situation where we screw ourselves over with that. But now, as the rain just starting to drop off a little bit more again then, we are in a fantastic spot in this Grand Prix. 15 laps to go here at Suzuka. We are just kind of fast-forwarding through this just as we get towards the end of the afternoon. And yeah, Andrea Kimi Antonelli, what a drive this has been by the young Italian there. Changeable conditions, a chaotic race up to this point. And of course, you know, having to put Mercedes on his back to carry us, obviously, after George Russell's unfortunate demise very early on. I'm going to get him just to push a bit more on the tyres towards the end of the stint there, just because I think we're going to be fine around those cars behind us. And I think as well, if we can get back within the range of Oscar Piastri, that would be fantastic towards the end of the afternoon there. I think everybody, though, is going to be fine on tyres towards the end of this one. So what we're going to try and do really strategically is wait for about the last 3 laps, and then we're going to try and really push to close in on Hamilton and Piastri here. Verstappen looks like he's coming under increasing pressure as well. We've got another crash. Is that a safety car? I don't know if that's a safety car. Who's now been involved in another accident in this Grand Prix? That's Isaac Hadjar there, going side by side with one of the Saubers. And again, just a little bit of contact through turn 1 there. Really doesn't take a lot. But he is going to go lawn mowing. That shouldn't be a safety car, though. I think we're going to be all right with that one towards the end of the afternoon there. So, yeah, again, we'll leave Antonelli just try and push a bit on those tyres. But, yeah, we just need to bring that gap to less than 5 seconds to Oscar Piastri. So we need to be within about 3 seconds of Lewis Hamilton by the end of the afternoon. And actually, that gap still just rising up a little bit here. I'm going to tell Kimi to start deploying the battery late on in the race, because hopefully that'll bring us just a little bit closer once again to those 2 cars here. But just a handful of laps to go then before Lewis Hamilton is going to make it 3 wins from 3 so far this year. You can see the gap between Hamilton and Antonelli now down to just over 5 seconds. So Kimi is really giving it everything he's got towards the end of the afternoon. Still a few more laps to go, though. A lot can still change unless Hamilton can really try and hassle Oscar here. I think it might just be a little too late. 1 more lap to go then here from Suzuka. I'm just going to tell him to go deploy. We've got nothing to lose at this stage of the afternoon. Hamilton is just a 1/10 of a second behind, so he is definitely applying pressure as they make their way through the final couple of corners. Antonelli gets within the 5 seconds of Lewis Hamilton, but obviously he just needs to be a little bit further under by the time, obviously, we get to the start-finish line there, as we are completely out of battery now in that car. Max Verstappen, despite being on some very old and worn tyres, he is looking in control of this race at the front of the order there. But Liam Lawson, what a turnaround that has been for the young Kiwi. I'm kind of hoping we see this. Maybe not exactly a podium for Liam Lawson, but I'm hoping, obviously, Suzuka, a circuit he's been to before, hopefully he is going to feel more confident in that Red Bull car as well there. But the gap to Piastri, about 5.5 seconds then on this last lap of the GP. I'm going to tell him just to give it everything he's got now. Just push towards the end of this Grand Prix. Better not make a mistake on this last lap as well then. But yeah, like I said, whether he finishes 6th or 5th, what a drive this has been from Andrea Kimi Antonelli here. He's had a tough start to the year, but things really have seemingly come alive around this venue there, as the gap now to Oscar Piastri down to about 5.2 seconds here. So it is getting really nip and tuck towards the end of the race, though. Max Verstappen through 130R one final time. He has controlled this race yet again. No Formula 1 driver has won the opening 3 GP and then not gone on to win the world title. I'm sure Verstappen does not intend on being the first one this year. At the final corner, the Dutchman will win the Japanese Grand Prix there. I'm still focused on our gaps a little bit further behind, as Charles Leclerc will come come through and split those Red Bull cars. Oscar Piastri, he will come through on the road in 4th. Hamilton will surely get the jump on him. Will Kimi Antonelli? No, he will not. P6 when all is said and done there. A little bit gutted with that, but I think we can be pretty happy with how the race went on the whole. I mean, big points for Antonelli. Brings us a bit close. Actually, it doesn't bring us closer to Aston Martin, but it comfortably puts us ahead of VCARB there. Sainz and Williams getting points on the board as well after a fantastic drive from the lone Williams man throughout the afternoon. But what a race here from Suzuka. If the real Grand Prix is as interesting as that, I think we're in for a fantastic weekend.
Their driver has certainly made Mercedes very proud. Brilliant results here.
That really was such a strong performance. And they come away from today with a top 10 finish. Amazing. Really, really good for the team.
Pure elation there as the driver regroups with a team that worked so hard to see this moment. Well, Max Verstappen can add yet another podium to his already impressive record.
What a great way to take their 3rd win this year. They've definitely found their form.
And a lovely show of sportsmanship to conclude proceedings here in Japan. And as proceedings start to wind down here, what will Mercedes have made of this result, Karun?
Well, it was a bit of a mixed bag here. Some things went their way, but others didn't. I think their main target now will be finding some consistency for sure.
And that's all for today as we wrap up the weekend here in Japan.
Well, there we are then. Max Verstappen makes it 3 wins from 3 so far this year. Still yet to claim fastest lap though, but 75 points on the board. Charles Leclerc, a fantastic drive to finish in P2, splitting those Red Bulls that just seem to have a little bit more than everybody else throughout the weekend. Hamilton, another consistent result there, but his first non-podium finish of the year. But he did just beat out Oscar Piastri there, and Andrea Kimi Antonelli just missed out in 6th. Fernando Alonso up 6 places in that Grand Prix as well, moving forward, basically getting back to where he should have been in that GP, ahead of Lance Stroll. Yuki Tsunoda gets points at home, and Carlos Sainz from 18th on the grid there, a big mover throughout the afternoon to walk away in P10 as well. 3 drivers failed to see the checkered flag. Ollie Behrman, Alex Albon, of course, that scary accident, and George Russell as well, of course, with that underfloor damage there. A disappointing day for him. What does that do to our Drivers' Championship, though? It does mean Verstappen now already with a race win buffer at the top of the table. Hamilton's still in 2nd, though, ahead of Leclerc. Liam Lawson gets up into 4th, ahead of both of those McLaren drivers. Alonso still ahead of Stroll. Andrea Kimi Antonelli, though, in P9, so massively bumps his way up the order, as George Russell will unfortunately drop down into 11th now, just behind Tsunoda as well. And so hopefully we can try and get a better result from him next time out. Constructors-wise, Red Bull still leading there as well, extending the gap over Ferrari. McLaren still in P3 ahead of Aston Martin. We are comfortably now into P5 as well, though, which is absolutely fantastic, ahead of VCARB and Williams there. And, well, 212 Motorsport, I do keep an eye out on them down in P11. Thank you all so much for watching. If you have enjoyed, please do make sure to leave a like, get yourself subscribed, and we'll be back very soon when Formula 1 returns, ready for, I believe, the Bahrain Grand Prix.